And we are live. Welcome to this webinar on the COP22 campaign. We're super excited that you're watching. I'm super excited to have you with us. And with me is also Anna from Climate Tracker. Anya, can you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone. I think a lot of people know me already because I'm in so many webinars recently, but this is Anna from Spain, and I have here a huge amount of nice people to talk about this COP22 campaign. So I am introducing as well you Andreas, who is also working for us, and he just started the call. And as he said, we will explain to you today what this COP22 campaign is about. So why is this awesome, Andreas?
Wow, why is this awesome? So last year I had the opportunity to join Climate Tracker for the COP21 in Paris, and it was a great experience for many reasons. Not only because you there have the opportunity to really kind of influence something. You meet the minister of your country, the decision makers of the European Union, and I mean, like everyone from Barack Obama to who else, everyone who has something to say in the international political landscape, basically, was there. The next thing that I think was great about it is that it was a fantastic social experience. We were like 15 people from 15 different countries, and it was amazing to work with all these guys, and was just like really inspiring for me personally. And I think I also just learned a lot from all that, and you really get a very deep understanding in international politics or international climate politics if you go there. And of course, it's really like a push for yourself, or maybe your career or whatever, if you go to one of these conferences with Climate Tracker. So in just many ways, it was a fantastic experience. It was a lot of fun, and I just really can encourage all of you who are watching to apply for this campaign and to go to Marrakesh with us in November.
So basically, Andreas is saying a lot of amazing things that we should be doing, but maybe you are wondering, like, how do I get there? Like, he's saying all these nice things he did, but we didn't give you any clue on how to do it. So basically, we have already started actually our COP22 campaign, which, as any campaign in Climate Tracker or the most campaigns we do, it's about publishing articles. It's about you writing amazing stories about climate change in your countries and publishing them in newspapers, in blogs, in magazines, in anywhere you think your voice can be amplified and great, and sending the links to us and letting us know your great stories. So this campaign started with one topic, which lasts this week and the next week, which is 1.5 degrees, and we will later on speak about this with people from small islands and with people from South Asia, which is a great combination, I think. And this campaign, which has these different topics, will also have this final prize, which is COP22. So this is a fellowship that is fully funded. You basically are taken care of the accommodation, flights, you're giving a per diem so you can buy food and all this. So basically you don't have to worry about money in general. But I would say a great part is what Andreas was saying. So you not only get the opportunity to go to a COP, which is great if you are interested in climate issues, but you also get the training and all the knowledge behind Climate Tracker, but also behind all these great climate international people that meet every year in COPs. Yeah, so maybe, I don't know if Andreas wants to add anything about this, or we could ask Pari what she thought about her campaign. Yeah, so Pari was with us in Paris last year. She was an amazing tracker from India. So maybe she wants to share with you how her experience was.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, I'd like to thank Climate Tracker again for giving me this opportunity to speak to the future climate trackers. And well, I have to say that it was an amazing opportunity to talk to the ministers, convince them to take the opportunity to join Climate Tracker.
Looks like Perry's connection is kind of broken right now.
Can you hear
She's
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now go
we
ahead, Pari.
Okay. So, no, I was just saying that thank you, Climate Tracker, for giving me this opportunity to talk to the future climate trackers. And well, I have to say that it was an amazing opportunity for me last year. And the best part about the whole thing was that I got to write with a lot of important people, not just people who are working in the government, but I got to meet ministers, bureaucrats, CEOs from the top NGOs who have been in this field for a really long time and who have been tracking the negotiations for a period of more than 10 years now. One of the most important things which I learned was also meeting different journalists and editors while I was there, getting to learn from them what kind of a story I can frame right there while I was at the negotiations and write the story there. So that was a really good experience in terms of networking. Also, in terms of negotiations, we actually got to sit in a lot of negotiations in their meetings and personally talk to the ministers, convince them, influence them, which was really great. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that it was really possible to do it just as somebody who goes there as a journalist or as a press officer. I think the best part about Climate Tracker is that it gives you so many opportunities to engage with people at so many different levels that you are just not restricted to being just a writer, but you can also act as like a pseudo negotiator, try to influence other negotiators and talk to them, talk to activists, and yeah, bring the whole picture together. Hello, can you hear me?
Well, thank you, Perry. That was great. I can just yeah, I think like it was kind of the same for me, like for all of us who had the opportunity to go there. So we really kind of want to bring this opportunity to those of you who are watching, and probably that's next thing we're gonna talk about. So Anna might be able to tell you how what you actually have to do to get this opportunity before we tell you a bit more about what you have to write about.
Exactly. So there's two things you should know right now before we jump into our new amazing guests. The first one is that all you need to do to join our campaigns is go to our website, which it's called app, like app.climatetracker.org. And there you have different campaigns, and there's one that says join us in COP22 or something like this. So you basically just have to sign in there, join the campaign, and there in the same app, you don't have to go anywhere else. There's a very nice way just to send articles. So everything is at the same place. You don't have to like move to different forums or websites or anything. Just app.climatetracker.org. And aside from that, you may want to interact now with us and ask questions, because maybe you are not sure about what this is about, what is COP22, or maybe you are amazed of the guests we will have right now and you want to ask them questions. So you can, of course, tweet at us. Our Twitter is @climatetracking, but also you can use the hashtag #ClimateTracker and we will reply to you. And also you can just comment on the Facebook event that we have created or on the Google Plus event. So that's so many options, just one. But yeah, we are really hoping to hear questions from you. And your turn, Andreas. I think I have nothing else to say now.
Well, I just wondered, I mean, people sign up on this app and they have to write about certain topics. Can you just very briefly update people on what they have to write about before we jump into our guests who will also tell you about the first topic we are writing about, in fact?
Yeah, for sure. So we have two really long publishing windows. This fancy name publishing window just means the publishing time, like the amount of time you have to publish something. So the first publishing window is a very long one that lasts until mid-October. You have all the specific dates in the website. So I don't think it's, yeah, you can find all the information there. So during this first publishing window, there's 3 topics that you have to write about. The first one is the one that we will be talking today, which is 1.5 degrees, which is why we have to keep temperature below 1.5 degrees and how this can affect your country meaning in impacts. After that, we will be talking about 2 topics related to the fossil fuel industry. So we will have one related to why they should be kicked out of the climate change negotiations, because in the past the tobacco industry was kicked out of the World Health Organization as well negotiations. So that means that it can be possible. You can just decide not to have the polluters in this kind of meetings on climate policy. And then we will have another topic more focused on why we should keep them accountable. Like they have been destroying our climate, creating lots of impacts that are taking not only livelihoods but also lives of people, and we should keep them accountable for what they did. And that's something that they are also trying to do with the tobacco industry, who is basically destroying our health and not trying to be accountable for it. So there's like a lot of links in there. But if you're like really confused with all the information I give, everything is on the website. You can read it in French, in English, and recently we will update it in Spanish. So anything you want, really. And I think I shut up for now.
All right, and we'll just jump into the topic we will publish about first. So we have a wonderful guest here from small island states, Karuna, who will just kind of join us to give us some insights about her opinion on 1.5 and why it is important for her and the small island nations. Can you hear us and join us? Yay!
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hello, everyone. We are here, and nice to see you all. I hope you're excited about writing. I am here with Karuna Rana, who's the head of the Commonwealth Youth Climate Change Network. So, Karuna, the Commonwealth includes a lot of, I guess, more vulnerable countries. What are some of those countries in the Commonwealth that are vulnerable to climate change?
So 31 out of 53 member states of the Commonwealth are small states, and most of them are small island developing states such as Mauritius, Seychelles, but also the Caribbean and Pacific Islands, and there are too many names to take.
And I think actually later on we're going to have Meghna and Adrian, Meghna from Mauritius and Adrian from Jamaica, about small island countries around the world. But I guess from a Commonwealth perspective, what do you see as the important difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees? I mean, there's a bit of history behind 2 degrees. Why don't we just hold on to it? It sounds like a pretty good goal to me. I understand it. But I hear that 1.5 might be better. I don't know why. Why don't you tell me?
Okay, so I'm going to come back to the fact that 31 out of 53 member states are small states, which are very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And I come from one myself. I come from Mauritius. Now, the 0.5 degrees Celsius might look very minimum, but it's proved that 2.0 is going to be devastating for us. So for us, it's about survival. It's right to equity, right to development. When it comes to small island developing states, we rely a lot on, for example, our oceans. And our oceans, they sequestrate a lot of carbon. They provide a lot of oxygen. And now because of climate change, we have a lot of coral reef bleaching, which is impacting our tourist industry. It's impacting the fisheries that we depend on a lot. So this is just one example of how 1.5 degree matters a lot. But there is a campaign that a few of my colleagues from small island developing states came up with last year, and it's 1.5 to stay alive. And there's one campaign I specifically heard from young people from Seychelles, which is, if we small islands survive, we promise that the whole world is going to survive. And this will only happen if we stick to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Okay,
and when you say 1.5 to stay alive, I mean, my parents and stuff, they say like, oh, if you kind of, eat too many muffins, you're going to die. And I'm like, you're joking, come on, whatever. But do you honestly mean like you think at 2 degrees things might get difficult to survive here in Mauritius?
Yeah, I mean, we're already approaching, I mean, we've already exceeded 400 ppm of carbon dioxide. We are exceeded 0.8 degrees Celsius, and things are already bad. We had a wave of coral bleaching event this year, and I think we haven't even approached 1.5 yet. So for me, it's not about eating muffins. It's like we are below 1 degrees now, and the impacts are really bad. We've had flash floods a couple of years ago. A few people died, and this is just about Mauritius. You know, we've heard about Vanuatu, the cyclones there, and things that happen in Pacific. Sorry, not just Pacific, but also Caribbean. So I think there are a lot of science that are coming up, and the science is backing up the data regarding the 1.5 degree. So I think things are very clear. And we are already seeing a lot of it. And as I said, we're still below 1 degree Celsius. So even 1.5 looks a bit worrisome to me. And now we're talking about 2. Like, I just don't want to hear about 2.
Okay, you just don't want to hear
No.
it. So if I say 2, like a lot, you're gonna not
Yeah,
like
I'll slap
it.
you.
2. Okay. Anyway, so Andreas, back to you. What do you think about that? I'm gonna line up our next guest, Meghna. But just in the meantime, do you have a similar, I guess, perspective from Europe, or is it kind of not a big issue in Europe?
Well, I guess European politicians at first just kind of had to understand this perspective, because for a long time they talked just about 2 degrees, and I think in Paris actually last year for the first time we internationally agreed, the European Union agreed, and basically the whole international community agreed to limit global warming, or aim for limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. But I think it is very important to push this issue further, because I think there's still not enough. I think people here still don't really understand what it means for small island states, or also other countries that are affected the most.
Okay, that's really interesting. And to help us better understand it even more, I've got Meghna here. Now, Meghna, you are from Mauritius, and I understand you're one of the leaders of the SIDS SIA group.
Yes.
What is that?
Okay, I'm the co-founder together with Corona of SIDS Youth Ames Hub. We recruit young people from the Ames region regarding small island developing states. We work with regards to advocacy and climate change, trying to sensitize young people and to know more about climate change, how they can advocate for climate change, and lobby with the government, like to keep those 1.5 that we are talking about.
So, in Mauritius, Meghna mentioned you're already feeling some of the impacts of coral bleaching, and you're already potentially feeling the impacts of rising sea levels. Mm-hmm. But do you feel it on kind of a day-to-day level? Are people here in Mauritius, outside of your network, already worried about climate change?
Those who are aware, yes, but there's much people who are not aware much of climate change, and this is why that is why we have got a lot of work to do with regards to sensitization and awareness campaign. But on a day-to-day basis, we do feel it with the weather getting warmer, with sand erosion that are there in our beaches. Like 10 years ago, our beaches was much more beautiful than they are right now. So we could feel it and see it like in our day-to-day life, yes.
Okay, and I guess Mauritius is largely a tourism economy, if you like, as a country. Do you think that tourism potentially could be affected if some of these, I guess, natural beauties of Mauritius, like the reefs, like the beaches, start to kind of erode or start to bleach?
Yes, of course, because we depend a lot on green capital, and it's true that tourism will not be coming to our island if they feel more and more that the sea is not as good as it was previously, and the beaches are not as wonderful and as attractive as it used to be. So, they do. Mauritius is known that for tourism coming for sand, sun, and sea. So, if those are getting affected due to climate change, so obviously it's affecting the tourism industry in the country.
Okay, so we already have, I guess, an environmental link. We have a link with young people. We have a link with tourism. Mm-hmm. For yourself as a young Mauritian, obviously hoping to, I guess, grow old and live a happy life here in Mauritius, do you worry that potentially over the next 10 to 15 years, it might get very hard to do so?
it could, but I don't worry much because we are starting with SIA to mobilize young people to do action-based oriented projects. So I won't say that I'm worried. I'll say that I'm concerned, and that concern will make us make things happen, so as we don't have to worry for the 10 years.
All right. Well, I think that's a great perspective, and perhaps something that a lot of our trackers out there can maybe take on and take into the future. For now, thank you so much for joining us, Meghna. You look beautiful, by the way. And we're going to cross, I guess, the Atlantic, and we're going to jump over to Jamaica, where we have Adrian. So Adrian's just going to come and join us. So Adrian, can you hear everything okay?
Yeah.
All right. So Adrian, you're from Jamaica. Now, we've heard about Jamaica a little bit last year. We heard you had some very bad droughts that were kind of making it quite difficult to live across the Caribbean. And potentially you also had some, I guess, diseases that were coming up as a result of some of these drier periods. Are these kind of events still occurring, or was that just a one-time thing and you haven't seen anything since?
Well, last year, actually, we had a 2-year drought that ended last year. So, and that affected our urban population the most and our agricultural sector. The part of the disease portion of it, we've had cases of chikungunya. I personally suffered from it 2 years ago. Terrible illness. So you're talking about this, both urban and rural areas suffering from pests and diseases. So when you're framing it in that kind of context, we are generally vulnerable. I myself live in an urban community on the coast. I'm seeing stuff like a lot of dust in my community because the temperatures are rising, so the moisture level, the moisture content around us are pretty much making it hard for us, and we have cases of persons having asthma, so of course they can't withstand certain environments. Once it gets too dusty, that's it. So we're looking at it from an agricultural context. We're looking at it from a public health perspective. We're looking at it from just water and sanitation. If our city does not have enough water, which 2 years ago when we had the 2-year drought, we were looking at a 20% level in our dams at the time. It felt that low. So our city literally had to be doing a lot of water lockoffs. We had to be using buckets. My household included, we had to be storing water for 5 days straight, and that is a nightmare. And I mean, from a sanitation and health perspective, it's also a nightmare. You don't want to be going around stinking up the place without water, right? Who would want to smell anyway? So you're also talking about as well. So if I can't take a shower to go out and earn a living, from that perspective, it's affecting us as well.
Yeah. So I guess not even Usain Bolt can outrun climate change in Jamaica.
No, we're not that fast.
Well, I think he's working hard to try and be. But that was really interesting. I mean, though for many people, that type of drought episode can be, I guess, waved away as, whatever, Jamaica has had droughts in the past, it will have droughts in the future, it's just a natural phenomenon. Do you feel like this might not be natural phenomenon, and is there any evidence to suggest that it might be linked to climate change?
There is certainly evidence. I can speak to the fact that I was born in 1988, and we're looking at a Gilbert episode that raged across the island, right? And then when you measure from 1988 to the 2000, we saw relatively fewer hurricanes in that period. And then when the turn of the century in 2001, we saw a blow up of about 12 major hurricanes affecting the island of Jamaica within less than a decade, within 7 years. We've never had that kind of effect. We're talking about increasing numbers of storms and increasing intensity. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy ravaged the entire eastern seaboard of Jamaica, knocking out the entire island's power supply. Now, when you're talking about energy and you're talking about storms in a hurricane belt, of course, climate change is real. Of course, you're at risk. And with 60% of our island being young people, of which 80% are unemployed, we are very vulnerable to climate change.
Yeah, and I guess if if a lot of those people are to gain jobs, you probably need a thriving agricultural sector. I mean, maybe not as the key employer of young people, but definitely an employer of young people. And you yourself work in agriculture. I understand you're kind of a okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that other young agriculturalists in Jamaica are worried about the impacts of climate change, or potentially feeling a little bit insecure about their future?
Yeah, actually, they're actually moving towards the tourism industry. They're looking to get out of agriculture and going into tourism, which is another vulnerable sector, because they see it as a part of it is cultural. We don't see it as progressive and the industry to stay in. One, because you have to work too hard, especially in a continuously climate change world, where you have to till the soil more, you have to put in more infrastructure, which are expensive, by the way. I was able to help about 26 students to put in a rainwater harvesting system in their school, and that cost about 7,500 US dollars just to put in a small one to keep their agricultural program going. So it is a bit rough, and they're moving to another climate vulnerable sector. As Megnar mentioned, Mauritius, the same can be said for Jamaica. Coral bleaching is running rampant across the Caribbean wide. So it's threatening all around, and it's like there is no hope. There are some studies out of the Department of Geography and Geology at UWI that said if the sea level should rise by about a meter, 30 to 40% of the flat areas in Jamaica will disappear, which unfortunately includes my home.
Nice.
Yeah, Jamaica would lose both our airports, which means there's no way that we can fly out. Jamaica will lose about 70% of Kingston, which is our capital. Montego Bay, which is one of our tourism sites, it will be totally gone. And of course, Kingston has a climate departure of 2023. So in a case where, and that's under the light that the temperature has already risen by 0.8 degrees. So imagine a 1 degree Celsius world.
Imagine 1.5.
We would not survive 1.5.
All right, so I think that's a boatload of information, but thank you so much, Adrian, for sharing. And anyone who's watching live and thinking about writing articles, you can use any of the quotes from Meghna, from Karuna, or for Adrian for your articles. We'll be listing all their information so you can source them properly, or even follow up with them with email. But Andreas, you just heard all of that. Why don't we kick it back to you, and you can end with some reflections and articles.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, all of you, for bringing in these perspectives and sharing all that. I just wanted to briefly also put in Pari again, because she has been with us in Paris last year. And Pari, you've got originally humanitarian background, so we've heard all these kind of stories from small island states, but you're from India, like one of the big emerging nations. How does climate change and 1.5 affect humanitarian issues in this huge country with this very big population?
Thank you for that, Andres. First of all, I would like to say that developing nations like India and China, as well as oil producing states like Saudi Arabia, have successfully blocked efforts at the climate negotiations to bring down the temperature limit to below 1.5 from 2 degrees Celsius under the guise of no detraction from Kyoto Protocol. And that is something which is very crucial to this debate, and something that writers can really write about. But it is really ironic that developing nations like India, China, and Saudi Arabia are doing this, because while most of the vulnerable countries are developing economies, the biggest counterparts are paying very little solidarity with the whole cause of 1.5 degrees. And at the same time, one has to understand that in a place like South Asia, most of the countries are developing countries, and there's a huge humanitarian impact when we talk about 2 degrees Celsius of warming, which is that there'll be a severe effect on labor. As soon as there will be an effect on labor, we can see a lot of
Right. I guess we just
drought situations. Hello? Can
Yeah,
you hear
sorry,
me?
we lost you for a second, but if you could just recap a bit, I think you're fine now.
So I was just saying that even in a country like India, there are severe effects of climate change like drought and floods in areas like in states like Chennai. We are seeing that right now, and we also saw it last year while we were at the Paris negotiations. But I think, according to me and the humanitarian community, one of the biggest impacts of the climate change um, uh, debate and also of the 2 degrees Celsius warming will be that there'll be a severe effect on migration, and we can see a lot of people, perhaps millions, being displaced across South Asia, which will be really problematic because already these are developing economies, and we have stress on our economies due to the kind of pressure we have on food security and agriculture. And so I think when we are looking at the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius, we have to be very cautious of the kind of impact it will have on people, and go take it ahead from there and debate more on issues related to health and displacement migration, which will be really big issues in the future, especially at the negotiations.
right. Thanks, Perry, for all these insights again. I guess like what we now have to do is getting started with our writing, because probably you who are watching wanna first of all get to the COP22, and secondly, because all these kind of things we heard that that all these very good reasons that even 1.5 means devastating effects of climate change. But if we go beyond that, we certainly will have consequences we really don't want to see in the world, and that's why we really should start writing on this in the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I really just encourage you to do so. It really is very important that we keep up the pressure for COP22. There are so-called facilitative dialogues in 2016, so this year, and in 2018, where exactly this topic of 2 or 1.5 degrees will play a huge role. And to keep up the pressure for politicians and to really get something done, and for you to go to COP22, I think, yeah, let's just go out there, write it down, nail it, and yeah, hopefully some of you in Marrakesh at COP22. That's from my side.
Yeah, thanks everyone who joined us. I think we had super interesting, like, real experiences from people, and I'm hoping you will use us for your articles. Remember to join in our website, which I said 2 times, but I can say a third one, which is app.climatetracker.org. And if you have any questions, we are always here to help. So just write, tweet, or send anything, and we will solve your doubts. We just received one question, and it was solved immediately, which was how long the articles have to be. But I can repeat it online so you all hear it. So normally you agree this with your editor. Yeah, there's newspapers or magazines that want a certain amount of words. Normally something between, I would say, 600 words to 1,200, something like this. Maybe too long, maybe too short. But it's really up to you. Don't send just one paragraph, because that's really boring. We want to hear real stories. And that's all. We didn't have any more questions. So I'm just thanking Andreas for the facilitation, Chris, and all the people that join us and on the nice experiences, and Pari to explain her perspectives on South Asia, but also her experience in Paris. And thanks, everyone. I think we can just close it here. And it was very nice to get to talk to you again.
Bye.